Hi, this is Derek with a horror movie review for horrornerds.com. It's been a while since I've been doing some of these. This is the latest movie that I have seen. It is called Hansel and Gretel, the 2013 release. Now, this isn't to be confused with the movie that came out in the theaters recently, starring, I believe it was Jeremy Renner and another famous person. Megan Atherton, I want to say. I could be wrong. In any event, it's a far cry from that film. This movie is actually an Asylum production. If you know anything about Asylum movies, they tend to be very low budget and very poor quality. This is definitely might be the worst offender in terms of what they have put out over the past couple years. This movie is directed by Anthony C. Ferrante. And it was written by Jose Prendes. He did the screenplay. And it stars Brent Lydic, Jonathan Nation, Stephanie Greco, and Dee Wallace as the principals. And in fact, it goes without saying that given the limited amount of script and what they were trying to do with this film, I would say they didn't do that bad of a job. If you go on IMDb, my gosh, they get completely hammered on the ratings there. But, I didn't think it was all that bad. I will say that there were a few points that were a little disappointing. One, obviously, the budget. I probably could have made a better looking and more involved film than these guys. So my guess is they probably didn't have more than $100,000 to make this film. I wouldn't even. I'm being polite by saying that. Actually, it was probably made with about $500. Another point to bring out is that when you make a horror movie, even if you only have a few bucks, you can still make it interesting. I mean, say what you will about the Blair Witch Project and how long it's been out, maybe hasn't served it well in terms of the movie aging well over time. It was innovative, it was done for very cheap, and it just brought something new to the table. Of course, it has spun a million knockoffs, but that's what good movies do. They spin knockoffs. This movie is a knockoff of a knockoff of a knockoff. In fact, there's something really wrong when Asylum puts out a movie called Hansel and Gretel practically the same exact time that a movie the same name comes out in the major box office. It's like they're just trying to capitalize on the big name. So didn't like that point. I think if they had a better budget for this film, it could have done something. But then that leads me to the screenplay. It was just terrible. Some of the camera work wasn't all that bad, but I just think that the characters felt very forced, very much cardboard cutouts of all the horror movie cliches that we have been subjected to for the past 40, 50 years, in fact. Another thing is about this review that I want to point out is that the biggest problem I have with horror movies that are of a B quality is just the continuity. I can even do with the crappy lighting and the bad, camera work. In this case, I didn't think it really had either. But you got to make your characters be consistent. If a character gets stabbed in the shoulder, driven down to the hilt with a knife, as the one main character does, he ain't gonna be lifting his arm right afterwards. Physiology is physiology. You can't do that. Another thing is, too, you're going to have a hot girl, strapped up in chains in her underwear, is the best you can do, having some big, huge guy punch her and beat her, and then, she's able to run and be okay right afterwards. Not only that, but, it's just a waste of talent. It's a waste of I think, the time and everything that you could be using, with your screen, amount, what you can do with it. I really think that you could do so much more, and yet, sadly, they didn't, and I didn't understand that, When you have characters that you could really be developing, develop them. Don't just use them as, eye candy on the screen. And if you are going to use them for eye candy, at least show us something more than just, what you did. And that's the problem with this movie. It didn't utilize the resources. All these actors seemed like they actually could act, but they didn't in this movie. Not at all. Last thing, and this is a small point, and I think, special effects, people get the brunt of so much criticism, but my God, I could have squirted a bottle of ketchup onto the screen and it would look more realistic and better than this film. Whoever was in charge of that did not do a very good job. You can tell the scenes were very forced, and it was like, okay, let's set up for the big shot and then take it and then cut away real quick. It just you know, it was just amateur. I mean, not even a B film. It was more like a D film. So, unfortunately, that's my very negative review of Hansel and Gretel. I wish I could say more good things about it, but there really wasn't much else to say. Asylum, you can do better, I could say that. And that, anyways, has been my horror movie review for horrornerds.com. Hopefully we'll be talking to you. Thanks.